Welcome back. The pandemic has caused many schools to go online instead of in person, but new legislation could change that. In tonight's KX Conversation, we're joined by U.S. Senator Kevin Cramer. Senator Cramer, thanks for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. Good to be with you.
Senator, you're introducing the Put Students First Act. Tell us about that.
Well, what we want to do is make sure that along with the federal funding that's going to schools, that there's an incentive and that they realize it's an incentive to put the students first and put the students in the classroom. The point of what's now $82 billion in federal investment in K through 12 education was to make the schools safe, to make the schools secure, to allow them to make the investments in things like plexiglass and ventilation systems and masks and all the other things that allow students to learn in person. It makes no sense to give $82 billion to schools and then have them just continue with online education when the Centers for Disease Control have already proven in studies that with the proper precautions, it's not just safe, it's preferable for kids to be back in school as opposed to learning online.
The legislation would prevent federal funds for K through 12 schools if they don't reopen. Why should that decision be left up to federal oversight instead of individual school districts?
Well, because these individual school districts are asking the federal taxpayer to fund their schools, but they're not utilizing the money for the purpose of the funding. So our kids deserve to be taught at school. And if we don't, there's irreparable damage being done to an entire generation of students who haven't had the opportunity to be in the classroom. And in fact, the CDC study showed that in the fall semester that things went so well that there's every reason to believe that kids can and ought to be in school and remain in school as opposed to online. No, the reality is if schools don't want to do that, then they shouldn't take the federal funding. And if they don't take the federal funding, I think we ought to make that available to more alternatives, whether it's homeschooling, charter schools. This might be a good time for the North Dakota legislature to consider repealing the prohibition on charter schools in North Dakota. Certainly private and Christian education. There are lots of alternatives to public education if the public school system doesn't want to teach kids at school. I think we're very blessed in North Dakota. Our governor's done a good job of providing the right guidance. Our schools have stepped up. But we are seeing in many places in the country, like Chicago, where the teachers union just plain old doesn't want to come back to work. And instead of putting kids first, they put themselves first. And I think that's very unfortunate.
Senator Kevin Cramer, thank you for your time.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.